Good afternoon and thank you for joining this Wellington 18 minutes short, although I have been known to waffle on occasion, so we'll have to see how timings work out. But I'm Baz Kinder, the Commercial Director of Wellington, and I've now been involved in Microsoft PPM and PMO for over 10 years. And today I'm presenting a beginner's guide to Microsoft Project for the Web, and I'll be covering everything from the project background to licensing, and you'll even see a very lightweight live demonstration of both Project for the Web and the Accelerator Plus Power App that we've also created to extend it. Before that, a very quick intro to Wellington. So we've been around since 2001 and we are headquartered in Windsor, but we do also have offices in Ireland and in Spain. And as you can see, we've managed to collect a few accreditations over the last 20 or so years. I guess one of the most key ones here is the fact that we are a Microsoft Gold certified PPM partner, but we're also an APM accredited training provider as well. But you'll see on the next slide that we do offer a wide variety of services that span consultancy, technology, and training, with a real focus on helping our customers to improve their PPM capability. You can read more at wellington.co.uk, so please do follow that link and take a look through the website. And here's a small selection of some of the organizations that we've managed to work with over the last 20 or so years. And again, we have a selection of case studies available on the website, so I do encourage you to go and take a read. And some of those are related to the topic of the hour, which is Microsoft Project for the Web. Okay, so let's take a brief journey through time to understand where Microsoft Project started. And Project started back in 1984, so that's when Project version 1.0 was launched. And since then, we've had regular releases, typically every 3 or so years. And these only happen to be, or just happen to be, I should say, the earliest icons that I could find, dating back to 1995, the same year that I was actually doing my GCSEs, which does make me take me back a few years. And anyways, this is what Microsoft Project version 1 looked like. So very functional, although simple. And then in the year 2000, Microsoft launched Project Central, which would become the very first enterprise project solution from Microsoft that enabled team collaboration. And it did this by extending Microsoft Project Desktop. Soon after this, we then saw the successor, which was Project Server. And then fast forwarding to 2013, we saw the cloud version being launched in Office 365, and that was Microsoft Project Online. But if we think about the modern day and the present day, in fact, we now have Microsoft Project for the Web, which was launched back in 2019, initially being announced at Microsoft Ignite 2018. And when Microsoft announced the new version of Project, they also stated that it would be this version of Project that would be seeing future innovation. And I do encourage you to go and take a look at the Microsoft 365 roadmap portal and filter by project, and you'll see a whole wave of roadmap items that Microsoft have got planned. Now, what this means is that by getting Project for the Web, you are getting access to the latest features and innovations from Microsoft. Besides that, you're also getting access to a much slicker user interface that's quite a departure from Microsoft Project Desktop and from Project Online. And in fact, if I was going to describe the appearance, I would say that it looks like the love child of Microsoft Planner and Project Desktop. That's how I would describe the interface. And you are going to be seeing it in action shortly, and I'm sure you're going to agree with that as well. Lastly, Project for the Web also offers really good integration with Microsoft 365 Groups, which makes it a lot easier to collaborate. And the new project is also designed to be extended. And really, I would describe it a bit like being a Lego set. It's designed to be built up with the Microsoft Power Platform. So unlike the old days where Microsoft gave you a super complex end-to-end solution like Project Online, which might contain lots of functionality but you're never going to use, they're now enabling us, partners like us, Wellington, to create complete PPM solutions that provide ultimately a better fit towards each customer's individual requirements. And the core elements of the Power Platform that we're using to extend Project for the Web include Power BI, which provides the primary dashboards and reports. Then there's Power Apps, the app building solution, which is what we've used to develop our Accelerator Plus PPM solution, which I'll talk about on the next slide. And then we have Power Automate, the workflow solution which we use to build governance frameworks and stage gates to support your project life cycles. So out of the box, if you were to switch on Project for the Web, you essentially get the green elements that you see highlighted on the screen. And this highlights the core capabilities that Project for the Web essentially provides, which is the ability to go in and create projects and tasks. And really, when you think about the essence of Project for the Web, it is to provide you with a scheduling engine. Now, beyond this, we can obviously extend it, and that's what the purple elements here represent. This is a subsection of what you get with the Accelerator Plus that's built using the Microsoft Power Platform. In a nutshell, you're getting a solution that's designed to power PMOs and wider project teams by giving them access to the enterprise functionality that they typically need. So, for example, the ability to prioritize projects, gaining access to live portfolio views, governance frameworks, RAID logs, and much, much more. That's of course not an exhaustive overview of the Accelerator Plus. If you would like to learn more, just get in touch using the details that are coming up at the end. And we do also have a deep dive of the Accelerator Plus Power App solution coming up later in the month, and you can register for that by going to wellington.co.uk. Let's now talk about licensing, and the first thing that I want to highlight is that in the setting of Project for the Web, anyone can get read-only access to the plans by only having a Microsoft 365 license. So if a team member simply wanted to go in, view their assigned work, and report back on progress, they can do that by simply having the Microsoft 365 license. And that, I'm sure you're going to agree, makes it much easier to collaborate without worrying about acquiring additional licensing, especially for those users that simply need a bit of visibility. However, if you're more of a power user, then the following licenses are going to be needed. And in terms of core licensing for Project for the Web, you'll need the relevant project plans. And Plan 1 is primarily geared towards users that only require basic scheduling capability without the need for more advanced features such as critical path. And if you are more of an advanced user, then you'll need Microsoft Project Plan 3, which is aimed at project managers or those in related roles such as program managers and PMO. And again, this is very much dependent upon the level of scheduling capability you need and the level of maturity you have within your organization. There is also a Microsoft Project Plan 5, but really for the purposes of Project for the Web, it's not really needed. So to reiterate, from a scheduling perspective, you'll either need Project Plan 1 for basic users or Plan 3 for the more advanced users. And for users wanting to interact with the Wellingtone Accelerator Plus Power App, they will need to have at least the Power App per app license, which allows access to a single Power App. However, if within your organization users need access to various Power App solutions, then you can license the user to access unlimited apps through the per user license instead of the per app plan. And lastly, I'm sure people want access to custom Power BI reporting packs. And in order to do so, they will need either Power BI Pro or Power BI Premium. And to provide a bit more context around the topic of licensing and in particular around user licensing requirements, I've highlighted some of the high-level recommendations in this table. Now, if we look at the columns containing user type and requirements, both of these elements are going to be subjective and they will probably differ based upon your specific end user or departmental needs. But this should nevertheless provide you with some direction on which licenses are required by role. And the good news here is that some of the licenses you probably need, such as Power Apps or Power BI, they might already be available within your organization. So do go and check with whoever manages your licensing. Lastly, I also want to point out that the pricing that I've listed here is based upon the pricing available on the Microsoft website, but pricing will vary based upon your organizational status or your enterprise agreement that you might have in place. So again, check with your licensing provider and they will give you the pricing that's relevant to your organization. I'm now going to move on to a very lightweight demo of Project for the Web. This is going to be very high level. It's going to give you a bit of a taster as to what you get out of the box with Project for the Web. I'm also then going to give you a glimpse of what you might get if you were to bolt onto that the Accelerator Plus. But again, as I mentioned earlier, we do have a more of a deep dive demo coming up later in the month, and I do encourage you to register for that as well. So here we are now in Microsoft 365, and of course we are concerned with two applications in particular, that being the Microsoft Project Plan app, which is where we go in and access Project for the Web, and of course Power Apps, which is where we house the Accelerator Plus. Now, to simplify the demo and to keep us within our time constraints, I've already got a variety of tabs open that I'm going to cycle through to demonstrate Project for the Web standalone versus Project for the Web with the Accelerator Plus. And in order to kick this off, let's go into Project for the Web. And to save time here, what I've done is already created a project. It's called the Coro Health Assessment Tool. And to keep things simple, I'm going to be using the same project across the entire demo. So whether we're looking at this standalone within Project for the Web, or whether we're going into the Accelerator Plus, or looking at the project through Microsoft Teams, it'll be the same project. So when we open this up, of course, we see the project title being displayed there on the top left-hand corner, but then we've also got various menu items that enable us to cycle through and view the project through, first of all, different lenses. So we've got the grid, the board, which is essentially Microsoft Planner, or the timeline view, which is a Gantt chart view, an interactive Gantt chart, I should point out. We can also go in, access some standard charts that are very reminiscent of the charts that you get in Microsoft Planner. And we also have access to a people view, which shows us a breakdown of the people we have assigned to the project and their workload from this project's perspective. But let's start with the grid view, and this is what you see presented on the table. It's a very traditional layout, I would say. And here we see essentially a list of all the tasks we have within the project. We can see summary tasks, subtasks. We then see their durations, the amount of effort required. We also see resource assignments, as well as start dates, finish dates, with some conditional formatting highlighting where we are maybe falling behind. And I guess the rest of it is pretty self-explanatory. I am going to point out really quickly that we have got the ability also to go in, add in additional columns to the display. We can also add local custom fields, and these could be text fields, date fields, number fields, simple yes, no selectors, or we can create something a bit more complex by going in for that choice field and creating various options there. And in fact, that's exactly what I've done here to be able to go in and set the rank status per task. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we can view the project through different lenses. So let's jump over to the board view first of all. And the board view is very simple. It's a Kanban board. And again, it's pretty much a direct replica of what you get with Microsoft Planner. So if you've already been using Microsoft Planner, this will be very familiar territory. And within this view, we've created some specific buckets. Beneath the buckets, we have these cards. Each card represents a task within the system. This is not the only view that we have available. We can also go in, look at who the work's been assigned to. We also then have the ability to look at maybe progress. We can group things by finish date, by labels, priority, and there's a relatively new view, which is the sprint view, very agile focused. And we do have a separate webinar coming up on that topic in the next few weeks. So again, check out the Wellingtone website and do stay on top of the events that we are publishing, and feel free to register. From here, I'm going to jump over to some of the other views. Let's have a look at the assigned to view. Very simple. It's showing me a list of all the people that I've got assigned on the project, and it's showing me the tasks assigned to them. I can reallocate work if I want to. I won't do for now. I will very quickly jump over to the progress view. And this is one of the standard views that I really do like because it automates some of the task updating. So for example, if I've got a task that's not yet started, but I want to set the status as being in progress, all I do is click, drag and drop, and that task is then marked as being 50% complete. I've also got the option of drilling down into some of these items, and I'll do that now. So we're looking at the prepare project brief task. I can see the list of resources assigned. I can go in, assign custom labels, which makes it very easy for you to group and filter some of the tasks, which is quite handy. I can also go in, add notes. Whoops, clicking around here. I've got some detailed notes already added to this example, and the rest of it pretty simple to follow. One thing I am going to highlight is the ability to be able to add checklist items. So on occasion, you might have some very large tasks that you want to break down into smaller chunks without them actually being separate tasks, but you can do that by adding in checklist items, and the team working on the task can go through and tick those off on their way to completing the task overall. We can also add dependencies. We can also look at things like attachments, and you can upload these from your local storage. You can link to a Teams file. You can even link to an external URL. There's also a conversation panel. This only really comes to life when we look at this via Microsoft Teams, but it's really good because you can have conversations going on around your tasks. You can even mention and add people to the conversation and even assign them additional items to work on, which is quite nice. Closing out of this, I'm going to go into the timeline view, and the timeline is really quite nice because it gives the traditional project managers the very familiar Gantt chart layout, but it's now interactive. So look, I can move things around, so I can even extend items out. So look, I'm going to extend this task, shorten it down. I can do pretty much whatever I like. But importantly, I can also go in and create links simply by clicking, dragging and dropping, which is really, really handy. Now, there is more to this. We are a bit constrained by the time that we have available, but I will very quickly show you the charts. You can go in and apply filters. You've also got access to the people view that I alluded to earlier. So there's Adele. I can see that she's got 5 tasks assigned, 3 of which are now complete, 2 of which are falling behind. So maybe that needs a bit of investigation. But what I'll do now is show you the extended view of Project for the Web through Power Apps, and specifically the Power App that we've created, which is the Accelerator Plus. So in order to do that, I'll jump to this tab. And here we are. This is the Accelerator Plus Power App, but it's still the same exact project that we were looking at a moment ago, but now within the context of Power Apps. So as you can see, there's a lot more to take in. We've extended this from being a project-only view into more of a portfolio-friendly, PMO-friendly interface. And I'm going to talk through the interface now. Let me minimize that menu there. So again, we've got the project title being displayed. Here at the bottom, we've also got the plan, the same exact plan that we were looking at a moment ago. So I've got access to the grid, the board, the timeline. It's all fully editable, so I can move things around, as you can see there. But what I'll do is I'll cycle back to the summary page and I'll talk about some of the interface at a high level. So first of all, I talked about extending using Power Automate earlier, and this is an example of that. So this is the project lifecycle that the initiative that we're working on right now is going to follow. And by the way, everything I'm looking at is configurable. And we can configure it by template, by project type, by departments, by organization. So there's a lot of flexibility here. This is an example workflow, and it's interactive. So if I click on any one of these stage gates, you will see that we've actually got an interactive checklist that needs to be completed by the end user before they're able to then request permission to move on to the next stage. Below that, we also then have these various tabs. And again, for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them today. Like I said before, we do have a deep dive of the Accelerator Plus coming up later in the month, so feel free to register for that. But I will show you 1 or 2 elements here that I think are important for you to see. So the first one is a summary page, and within this we've got a general form. So we'll scroll past some of the basics, but I am going to highlight the ability for you to go in and specify the project type you're working on. This, of course, is configurable by organization. But then this is where it really comes to life, because essentially what you want to do is you want to move out from the realms of looking at an individual project and Project for the Web, and you want to achieve an overarching portfolio view, and we do that by linking things together. And here's an example of that. So I can loop this project into a program. I can even link it into a business unit. So again, you can create these parent-child relationships and see the hierarchy and roll this information up when it comes to reporting. So again, you've got the ability to do that. We can also go in and define things like business cases. We can define strategic drivers and score the projects. We've also got the ability to go in and do resourcing. We can also track things like risks and issues. And again, I'm keeping this pretty lightweight, but I will drill down into one of the existing risks. Let's discard the changes there. And this is a representation of the form that you need to complete in order to onboard a risk. So we can categorize it. We can assign things like owners. We can even do some scoring. And the scoring, of course, is very specific to your organization, and it can be adjusted to suit. And we're also capturing some risk response commentary as well. Saving and closing out of the individual project. If I open up that menu on the left-hand side, you will notice that we do have access to program views. We can even access pipelines. And of course, there's a full complement of array log items, and we have other management artifacts there as well. Now, beyond this, I've looked at 8 individual projects so far, but I can look at things at the portfolio level. In fact, I've jumped straight into risks. Maybe I should have gone into projects and shown you some of the portfolio views here. So here I am looking at my project list, and I'm currently looking at active projects, but I can also go in and group. So let's group them by project type. But as I mentioned earlier, you can do the same thing from a risk perspective as well. So let's go into risks. Let's minimize our menu again. And here is a collective view of all the risks across the organization and the entire portfolio. Of course, I can do things like categorize to make the views a bit more digestible. But I can also open these views up in Power BI. And here we have a report that's been generated pretty much on the fly based upon that data that was contained within that list. And these reports, as you would expect, are still fully interactive and extendable. So here, to illustrate this, I'm going to extend by adding in the category field. And there we now see the new chart being added in. And we can see that the highest level of risk category is resource related. So again, that needs further investigation. And moving on, I'm now going to view the same project we were looking at earlier through the context of Microsoft Teams. So here we go. CoO Health Assessment Tool, same exact project embedded as a channel within a wider team, the project demo team in particular. And I can make this full screen. I can do exactly the same things that I did when I was looking at it in standalone project for the web, when I was looking at it through the Accelerator Plus, or when I'm looking at it through Teams. It's still fully editable. And I've got access to all of the individual views that I had access to previously. And now to wrap up this demo, I'm going to head over to Power BI, which is where I've got open a suite of custom Power BI reports linked to the Accelerator Plus. And in total, we actually have around 19 different dashboards. We've landed here on the portfolio dashboard. And for those of you not familiar with Power BI, note that you do have filters at the top. These reports are also interactive, so each one of these charts does act as a filter. So let's look at all the projects belonging to Megan. Let's click on Megan's name, and again, the report updates based upon that filter selection. The reports themselves are very wide-ranging, as you can see through the menu on the left-hand side, and I will open up one final report, the risks dashboard, again to highlight that. And what's really handy here is we talked about risks earlier, and the biggest category of risks was around resources. So let's click on that segment and look at all the projects that are highlighting resource as being a risk factor in their project. So hopefully you get the idea, but we are again constrained by time. So I'm going to go back to my presentation and wrap this up now. Okay, so let's now talk about next steps. And first and foremost, I'm sure that many of you want to see more than a quick overview of the technology. So if you would like a deep dive, just drop me an email using the details that are coming up. And for those of you that think the project for the web is already the right fit for your organization alongside the Accelerator Plus, but you would like to understand what an implementation might actually look like within your specific context, all you need to do again is get in touch and we can talk about a envisioning workshop, which typically lasts about half a day, and the output to that would normally be a implementation roadmap and a tailored proposal. And for anything else, just drop me a line using these details. So there's my email address, baz.kinder@wellington.co.uk. You can also find me on LinkedIn. And for those of you that have got LinkedIn installed on your phone, all you need to do is scan that QR code and that'll take you straight to my profile. And once you are on LinkedIn, do give Wellington a follow as well. We do share a ton of content on a daily basis, which I'm sure you would find insightful. Last but not least, this webinar, alongside many others, do end up eventually on our YouTube channel. So do check that out. It's youtube.com/WellingtonPPM. And once you're there, do subscribe and ding that notifications bell. But for now, we're going to move on to Q&A.